There are 3 request documents used by supply management, each for a different purpose. Those documents are the RFI, Request for Information, the RFQ, Request for Quote, and the RFP, Request for Proposal, which is the topic of this course. There's often confusion between these documents and their intended use. This is a brief overview of each. First, we'll look at the request that offers the least immediate financial benefit, the RFI. An RFI is a request for information. Depending upon the industry you work in, and just to make things more confusing, there are actually 2 very different RFIs. The first, and the one most used in supply management, is the request for information issued to learn more about the capabilities and capacity of the supply community. This type of RFI follows the same format as those used for price comparison, but a request for information is not used for pricing, or in most cases even delivery information. They are also not used for obtaining competitive bids. Because of that, and because a vendor may mistake it for a true bid, it's very important when issued that there are clear statements that address the intent of the RFI, and that it is used for information purposes only, and that there is no intent for any order, contract, or agreement to be issued subsequent to the information being provided by any vendor. The value an RFI offers is detailed information about what vendors in a specific area, location, or category can provide. Ideally, an RFI identifies the general requirements or expectations of the organization. The RFI can be very useful where there is little known about various vendors for specific products, goods, or services, either by location or geographical reach. It is also helpful in cases where there are large numbers of potential bidders. The RFI can help to narrow the field for the bidders list, which in turn will reduce the time and costs involved in evaluating bids by ensuring that the bid participants are aligned with the needs of the buying company. The RFI is also used to gather basic information for the purposes of developing a database of qualified bidders for future use. It is important to ask for information that does not require a vendor to do more than provide details and information that is readily available and that will not have a financial burden in providing. To help identify differences among vendors, a good RFI will also focus on requirements that are unique to your business and on concerns that are less likely to be addressed by every vendor. Vendors are usually asked to submit their proposals in a standard format in order to make comparisons easier. The second type of RFI is used in construction. During the construction phase, there is often some ambiguity in the agreement between drawings and specifications that cannot be adequately addressed in every single matter. Therefore, the purpose of this request for information is to act as a mechanism to resolve these subtle ambiguities early in the construction process. This RFI is issued by the vendor to the owner. An RFI raised by the general contractor that has been answered by the owner is generally accepted as a change to a scope of work. Should the response to the RFI lead to additional work during the construction process, the RFI may lead to a change order to the contract value through a formal claim process based upon the result of the RFI. It is when the RFI is approved that supply management becomes involved. The RFQ. The request for quotation is most commonly used when seeking quotes, pricing, for clearly defined standard goods that are built or manufactured to industry codes. They are mostly issued through a buyer in purchasing for off-the-shelf goods, inventory items, or spare parts. They can be used for services, but those services are usually considered secondary to the actual material or product. RFQs are also used to obtain quotes for large equipment that is of a general nature, such as large valves and pipe. RFQs are not complex, and while some definitions on the internet describe them as being used in strategic sourcing events, they should not be. The reason RFQs are not complex is due to the fact that the goods being acquired are themselves not complicated or elaborate in nature. The stipulation for use of an RFQ is that the items are of standard manufacture and do not require specifications, information, or modification beyond the vendor's normal process. Pricing templates are used in RFQs because it makes it easier to compare bids and identify the appropriate vendor when everyone submits their pricing in the same format. They are also useful in that they can be used as part of the ensuing purchase order, which helps to reduce errors in the transfer of information. Another key element of the RFQ is that vendors who are part of the RFQ process are most always, or should have already been, pre-qualified, and the goods for which the vendor are providing quotes should be easily identified by industry standard descriptions. The RFP is a different animal altogether. The proposal itself is intended to provide details and information that the originator did not have or was not able to determine. In some ways, it's a request for help. Help in determining what equipment, material, or services will get to the desired result. The proposal is how the recipient of the RFP plans to solve the issue or improve upon the process and the cost associated with doing so. That one sentence demonstrates how important it is to clearly set out what the requirements are in the RFP documents. There are three critical elements to an RFP. Scope of work being the first and most important, second, terms and conditions, and third, compensation. Each of these, while important, will require more thought than simply copying an old RFP, pasting in the new scope of work, and adding some general terms and conditions. The RFP is also more often than not a document issued in a strategic sourcing or potentially category management initiative, although they can be issued for much less arduous events. For example, they can be issued for a complex piece of equipment, such as equipment skids or specialty services, from construction to maintenance or IT. The goal of these can be twofold. One, to purchase a solution from a qualified vendor, and or to create a long-term arrangement. Another element of an RFP is that while the organization's general terms and conditions are included, it is anticipated that these will change or be supplemented subsequent to negotiations with the selected vendor. Therefore, unlike the RFI and the RFQ, the RFP has many more integral parts that need to be addressed.